to the municipality. They discharge wherever they feel like discharging. They too need to be held accountable. They have to have a standard to adhere to. They need to have a health and safety team that, monitors their performance and so forth. So, but government still has to come to play. They need to enforce the rules and regulations because, they put them in their policies. It's in legislation. So who must enforce it?
Well, that is
me
the
and
question.
you, maybe.
No, it's very problematic. I mean, I
Yes.
dived into that and then I thought, you know what, I'll get annoyed with this. Let me stop here and just leave
No,
it as
it
a
is.
question.
Interesting. We've got a professor in our research team, and his research was looking at all the research that has been done on water and wastewater. How much of that has actually been transferred into policies and government?
What was the stat on that?
Well, I'm not yet sure. I'm still to see what the outcome is.
Oh, that would be interesting. Do share with me.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be below 50%.
I believe so too. I believe so too. As much as I feel that even though we're saying, oh, higher education, do research, a lot of our theses are collecting dust on the shelves. Yeah. So something needs to be done. At the end of the day, we have target 2030 to adhere to, and I hear we're nowhere near 15% of reaching the target. Like, we're still far.
Yeah, I think that goes into the pestle analysis. Politically, I think there's a bit of a variable there because you've got 15 at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah.
Running the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's move back to your research.
Yes.
Quickly.
What we're here for.
So according to my quick research anyway, again, I realised that there were about 26 to 30 abattoirs in Cape Town. This isn't a lot, like you said, there isn't a lot. However, when I'm reading and I'm looking at the ways of working, even though I want to blame the government and say they should be doing, I feel like, in my opinion, that we should have sanctions in place for those organizations because it is their corporate responsibility. Yes. And from what I can see, they're doing sales pitches online, yet they're doing other things behind closed doors. And it is affecting the community. And that annoys me. However, because I'm not in your research field, I will ask the question, do you think that the onus needs to go back to the organizations instead of us relying heavily on the municipality?
At the end of the day, it's up to us to monitor our bad behavior, because the government can't see everything. So yes, the onus does need to go back onto the organization itself. And I think what organizations are also missing is the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals. We need to now take them personal, to say this is affecting my mom, it's affecting my daughter, it's affecting my community, because at the end of the day, that's who we are currently affecting. And like you said, if your kettle is drinking water that is got impurities, and then we've got your mad cow disease will come from there. It's a continuous cycle that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and out of hand. So yes, they need to take up onus. They also too need to take the initiative of coming up with innovative ways to improve their own processes. Because I think the other idea of my research was that you as a slaughterhouse yourself manage your own wastewater by using these different variables and then try to say, how can I reuse that treated water? Because the idea is to not try and deplete the water resources that we have, where you're now using clean water to wash the tires of the trucks. You could probably use your treated water to wash the tires of the trucks. I know for us, when we were still going through that water crisis, we now would, the shower water, you had a bucket to collect that and then you use that. And it's still in my brain where I feel like I need to conserve the water. So they have to come up with innovative ways to improve on their processes themselves.
No, I like that. And moving on to your methods, like you shared in terms of your lived experience. When I was reading through your methods section, I noticed that you had stated what the limitations were, the problems that you encountered in terms of your tests. I guess for anyone who wants to walk in your path, what methods did you adopt to ensure that you had a reliable sample test? What were the methods?
So with us, because the treatment was 24 hours,
Mhm.
we had to have an agreement with the department to say, okay, we are going to request that individuals are allowed into the lab after hours. So luckily for us, we had 2 students in our research team. So we comprised of 8. We had 2 students in our research team who lived on campus. So then they would take shifts to go and monitor that, oh no, sludge has gone into the pipe of the EGSB, which then contaminates the whole process. So we had to have those systems in place. And then because of the limitations that we had to use the municipality to actually analyze our samples and then give us the results, and then we would then make and interpret those results. So that was the one thing that I also appreciated, where now it minimizes our error making in our own, tests. But then again, I feel like we also still miss the opportunity of developing methodologies in terms of how you actually go about doing your BOD test or your COD test, because we never did it ourselves. So yeah, those were the systems that we put in place to ensure the accuracy of our data.
No, I love that. And to anyone at home, research is difficult in the sense of sometimes there are variables that you can't control and you have to be strategic in order to get the data.
Yeah.
And that's what that was. It was a reaction to a problem, and this is the solution
Yeah.
essentially. And, yes, there are papers that focus mainly on methodology. This would be a great one because
Mm.
essentially you would state what the limitations are. So there's a research paper.
Stop giving me ideas.
And, in terms of the next question, then, what were the 3 interesting findings that you didn't think that you would find during your tests?
Well, I can tell you the ones that we didn't find. Oh, no, actually, it's a bit of both, because the idea was the EGSB was supposed to emit gas that we were
Mhm.
supposed to collect and go and analyze. And then my supervisor was approached by a small company owner who had developed the EcoFlush that we used as the hydrolysis agent to reduce the fat content in the pre-treatment before it's fed into the EGSB, which is an anaerobic digester. Anaerobic meaning it doesn't require oxygen or aeration. So now, adding, at first we assumed that when adding the EcoFlush, it has to, for it to be fed into the anaerobic, there shouldn't be any aeration that takes place. But then we realized that no, there was still sludge that was coming up at the top, and there was no gas that was generated. So what was interesting is that when you added the EcoFlush, it actually minimized the amount of CO of methane that was generated. So we collected nothing. So that had to change our methodology. We collected zero. And because we were like, is there something wrong with this machine? No, there was no gas that was being produced. But what was interesting is that the EcoFlush actually reduced the fat content,
Okay.
FOG, fat, grease, fat, oil, and grease, quite well before feeding it into the EGSB. And then, I mean, if you look at the pictures of the water quality at the end, it's like, oh my goodness, it moved from this smelly thing to this beautiful thing. So yeah, that was one of the things. Firstly, even the percentage of COD removal, I didn't think we were ever going to get to that, because when you look at the water as it comes in, you're just like, it's not possible. This plant is so small. So I was also shocked at the efficiency at which the water was treated. The third thing, Um, well, the third thing is a joke that we used to carry around. We used to say that the smell of poultry slaughterhouse wastewater was money because it smelled so bad. But I mean, if you look at the amount of people who rely on poultry as a source of food because it's even cheaper, it's got the protein, so we always used to say, yeah, this is the smell of money, and it smelled so bad. But it was also interesting that the EcoFlush actually also reduced the scent. That was interesting. It was something we didn't know what this EcoFlush was going to do, but
No, that's interesting. For anyone who wants to read the paper, the EcoFlush section is actually in there. I did read it myself and I looked at the pictures. So
yeah.
just so you know why Noma's smiling and getting excited too. She did see it. So in terms of, the treatment stage, you mentioned in your paper that there was UV radiation. What did that do?
So the ultraviolet was supposed to purify the water that came out of the membrane. However,
Mm.
at that stage, it was not functioning efficiently. So I think my treatment process started from the pre-treatment, the EGSB, and ended at the membrane. And then the research team that came after us, they then continued and looked at the membrane versus the UV, ultraviolet, yeah.
Loving it. So, with all these tests that we've done, we're happy. We've got somewhere. We've got a paper.
Mhm.
For those at home who don't have the capacity because they use AI will not summarize limitations. Give you high level. What were the limitations of your study? No shade.
Um, what we found was much of a challenge, was from time to time because the anaerobic digesters is very sensitive to fat contamination.
Yeah.
So obviously in the beginning we had a huge challenge in terms, which is why we then implemented the EcoFlash. We had a challenge in terms of getting any results because it was damaging the EcoFlush. So we always had to have technicians to come in and fix it. But like I said, our main limitations was that we could not do the analysis of the results ourselves. We had to outsource it. Yes, it was costly, but I liked the model that my supervisors had, whereby they would encourage students to publish. And then once they get the funds 2, 3 years later, that will then pay for future students to be able to attend conferences. Luckily for us, we also had the University Research Fund where we could apply as students and staff members for funding to assist to pay for these different tests and analysis that we had. But I think the challenge was also then having to wait for the results to come from the municipality because they had a backlog. So I believe they had a laboratory that they opened up to the community to say, if you need any analysis, we're willing to do it for you. So it was that waiting period. Oh, but the biggest challenge was COVID. Oh my goodness. COVID started when we were now busy with the experiments in the lab. And then we had to be shut down. And like I said, it was a 24-hour process because microbes continuously need oxygen to break down the wastewater. So, wow, COVID nearly cost us. But yeah, we made a plan. I won't tell you what the plan was because we're not trying to get arrested.
We was out partying summer first, allegedly.
So yeah, it really, that nearly got us. Um, but yeah, the limitation for me was the fact that we couldn't do the analysis ourselves.
And to be honest, I must say, like I got excited going through your methodology because I could see the reactiveness to problems.
Mm,
And for me, it became innovative while reading your
Yeah,
paper. And
yeah,
that's why I'm so excited, even
yeah,
now, like speaking to you, because I could see that, okay, this has happened, this is a reaction,
yeah.
this is, and it's so clear. So please do read the manuscript.
But I
And
think what added to that, sorry to just
yeah.
interrupt, was the fact that we worked as a research team. My
Mm.
supervisor kept on saying, no student left behind. So even when we were facing challenges, we had to resolve them as a team to say, okay, we need to come together. What are we going to do? I mean, it was interesting that we had to go and fetch our own water from the poultry slaughterhouse. So the guys were like, no, ladies, don't worry, we'll go and fetch it, you know. And you would assign a certain person that, okay, at this time you'll be doing this. So it was lovely working as a team. It was really nice. Then it left, you know how they always say research is so isolated, but then it made, like I say, community. It's a
Community,
need.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I love that, and I'll use a saying that I've learned now from other interviews and from my own mother, umuntu ngumuntu
Umuntu ngabantu.
ngabantu,
Which
and
is why it's a
that's the
challenge being an
yeah.
international
So
student. That's true. Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu.
you say it better than me, so we'll take it. Do you know what? I can say it offline, and you get nervous in it because
I
you know
know.
that people are actually
Oh,
listening. So
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
say it properly. I know how to say
No problem.
it. Defense. um, in your opinion, then, how does your research benefit the wider community?
The idea, I think even someone on LinkedIn had forwarded my paper to a county fair where they're also a poultry slaughterhouse. And they were like, this could be something that you could implement. I think more especially when it comes to the EcoFlush. I think the EcoFlush was the center of everything because even on the plant itself, you know, you could get like drainage systems that can get clogged up because of the fat content. If you just put it in there, it really does its magic. So I feel that a small poultry um, slaughterhouses could benefit from that. I also feel that municipality could benefit in terms of maybe rolling out a program that can train these SMEs to try and improve the quality of water before they dump it into their wastewater treatment plants. It can also benefit the community. You could have like the small slaughterhouses also engage in community programs where they educate the community about, okay, this is what happens, and this is how we plan on resolving our wastewater consumption. These are the processes that we have implemented. I mean, it's a whole education. I loved when we were having an energy crisis in South Africa, where on your TV there'd always be something saying, okay, if there are rooms that you're not using the light, switch it off. Plugs. It's that education that is now on a greater scale. So a lot could be done with that, but it's all about people taking the initiative or knocking on the right doors, trying to also get industry to partake and uptake these resolutions that we come up with. I don't know.
I think it all goes back to your statement, which is core maths, which is the next question.
Mm,
There's a cost to this.
yes.
So can our SMEs afford, or municipality, or do you think that is the biggest barrier that they
I
have?
think a feasibility test needs to be done
Mhm,
because my research didn't cover that
mhm,
as to whether to see is this an economically viable um, process that people can undertake or government can undertake.
mhm,
That needs to be done to then identify who must take up what.
mhm.
Yeah. So maybe then I would say those who read my paper try and come up with a feasibility study.
I like that. Or you could get some PhDs to continue your research and
That's
apply for
true.
funding.
That's true. That's true.
And then you can pay me just to observe.
We about that?
I love it. So, I've just got a few more questions that have come in from our colleagues, and one is, I feel my supervisor is not supportive. What should that person do, in your opinion?
You see, the challenge that I have seen when it comes to supervisor relationship, looking at South Africa, I've spoken to other colleagues of mine who are doing their PhD abroad. The African context is that it's totally different when I compare it to what I get this side. For example, in the university where I'm currently at, there is a committee that is assigned to monitor your relationship with your supervisor. I know a lot of people will be like, but at the end of the day, it's their colleagues. They're going to side with their colleagues. But I think even having that in place gives you that assurity that I can be heard. And I mean, every time I'm presenting my progress every year, they always ask me, how's your relationship with your supervisor? And even he himself will be like, Maggie, if you want to go and report me. So I think the way it is approached back home is kind of different, whereby the supervisor is always right. I have had a situation where the first master's I undertook lasted 7 years and I didn't move past the literature review. And that was because one supervisor would tell you, write it this way, you write it this way. The other one would say, no, change it, then you change it. But it ended up looking as if none of them were willing to actually take up their role as a supervisor. I think I even remember writing an email to the main supervisor and I attached the memorandum of understanding. And I'm just like, kindly tell me which of these have you actually adhered to? So there is that challenge whereby supervisors are seen as the be and end all instead of being the mentor, being the one to coach you, being the one to provide and develop the research skills that you need. And I actually appreciate the supervisors I had for my masters, even though they threw us in the deep end, but at least they let us explore presenting at conferences, which was not a norm in my department. International conferences, I literally presented in my first year of my master's in an international conference in Shanghai. Even the panelist was shocked that, but this is your first year. Writing publications, that was something I had never written a publication before, but they were willing to say, you need to develop these skills because it's not only about your research project, but what comes with undertaking this research project. So I think supervisors, it's a struggle in South Africa. It's a struggle in Africa as to how to approach it, because it is a reality. Many students do struggle with their relationship with their supervisors, and even if they try to turn to the channels that be, they side with their colleague.
That is really sad to hear, but I did interview Dr. Wongane, who divorced his supervisor because they went, basically your story is his story. And I interviewed him, but what I challenged him was, is it because he was older that he felt he could challenge? Because he did it in his second year of his PhD, he wasn't going anywhere. And he said he never looked at it like that, because when you're younger, I remember when I was young, I was really like timid. Like I'll be like, if I tell them, they'll blacklist me, so let me suffer.
I think for me, what helped was that my mom worked for the Center for Postgraduate Studies, where I was doing my master's. And she's a true parent. She will advocate for her children, because she also wrote to my supervisor and she was like, I looked at what Ntombifuthi was writing. She was writing a technical report. That was not a thesis. And I must say, it is due to my mom that I was able to then link that, oh, in your proposal, you need to show the significance of your study. That was not something that I was taught by my supervisor. That was something I was taught by my mother. But not everybody has a Dr. Lillian Bingo in their household. You get? So it's a challenge. I think universities or higher education needs to revisit that. It shouldn't just be an MOU on paper. It needs to be an MOU, live MOU. It must be in action, in play.
Well, You'll be glad to know this is the final question. I'm sure you're tired now. So, in your opinion, do you think PhD Hard Talk as a platform is beneficial for us as colleagues, universities alike, and the communities in which we conduct our research in? Or do you think Noma is not working? Call it a day, shut it down, there's no point.
For me, I said to you earlier, I am actually appreciative of your platform because, like I said, it's not only making research something that is relevant to the individual who is walking in the street, but it's also creating this awareness that, guys, academia and research is another career path that you can undertake. I like the fact that you're trying to make research something that is accessible to the wider community, not just us in the academic field, you know. You're getting people to think like the different types of research that you discuss on your platform. You're getting people to think in a different way, to say, okay, so if I did that, I could do this. Because one thing with research, in order for it to succeed, we also need to change the mentality of the individuals. I could say I want to minimize the amount of wastewater that's generated. But if the common person does not close the tap when brushing their teeth, they're still generating water. So now it's about educating that mentality to change their behavior. So I like what you're doing, Norma. It actually speaks to what is my passion, which is using education as a power to change the world, you know? So I love it. I love it and well done.
No, thank you so much. I'm humbled, and thank you again for your time. For everyone at home, remember hashtag Project Dissemination to the world and hashtag Sustainable Knowledge to the world. And most importantly, if you'd like to contact Ntombifuthi, the details are at the bottom here, and also to read the paper, which I think is really, really good. I've read some papers where, because you must remember at home, I must be honest, I'm not in this field. So for me, it's like 1 + 1 = 2. That's where I start from. It's outside of my range. So the fact that I understood the paper, it means a lot to me, and
It
hopefully it
means a
does to
lot
you
to
as
me
well.
as well. Oh.
So thank you very much. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much.